Sushi asks, are both of you agreed that Max is not significantly better than Charles? And then Casual, can you explain why Max is included in your generation? Can you then explain why Max is included in your generational drivers list? I'll answer real quick if you want the first part. So, as you both agreed, Max is not significantly better than Charles. Yeah, I think that's factual. But also, I've said this in the past, like, I don't know if he's
She was the one
significantly...
who asked the question, right? Where he
Yeah,
said that, do you think he's last week that
significantly
is
better. Yeah. And
exactly.
as I said last week, I don't think significantly. I think Charles, in terms of race drivers on the grid right now, I think Charles is probably the closest to Max in terms of talent. But I think where, like, if the two of them were in the same car over the season, where I think Max would win is that I think Max just consistently is just always there, ready to race, and like his mentality is just absolutely on point pretty much every weekend, and only gets thrown off when things go really wrong.
Plus, he wins all the wet races.
Yeah, that's true. So I think like that's the problem is like I don't think Max is significantly better than Charles, but I also don't think he's significantly better than say George or Oscar for that point. I think it's the small margins where everyone wins. But I think where Max is a talent in the second part, like why I would put Max as like generational talent is Max is he makes up those fine margins pretty much every fucking weekend. That's what makes him so good for me. Is that he's just there every weekend. It's not that he's, 4/10 ahead of all these drivers all the time. It's that when it comes to those fine margins, he's always there. I'll let you answer the second part then, because it was for you.
Yeah, so I think it's basically related to a post that I'd done when I was listing the generational talents. So for me, the list was it ended with Max. Before him, it was Michael. Before him, I'd put Prost, and before that, I think it was Lauda, and then there was Jackie Stewart. That was the list that I had. So the reason why, so in my case, the definition that I had of generational drivers, it's one driver from that generation that is definitively better than everyone else. So when I talk about the current generation drivers, the top drivers are Max, Charles, George, Oscar, Lando. Roughly, it's these five drivers. Now, if I have to say which driver is the best, I can I can definitively say that Max is the better driver out of all of them. Since 2019 or 2018, I don't think any of those four other drivers that I mentioned have put together a season that is better than what Max has executed in
Yeah.
any of those years. And that is a very large set of seasons in which I've made this conclusion. The
Yeah.
reason now there's another thing. A lot of Lewis Hamilton fans lost their shit when I said that, because the previous generation had Alonso, Lewis, and Vettel, and Kubica, Robert Kubica, but his career was cut short. So when I talk about these three drivers, at least for me, I don't think I can pick any of them being definitively better than other. For me, it was every time when a driver had a team and a car combination better with him, he ended up showing or putting together a better result or a better season. You
Yeah.
could see it during Vettel's Red Bull era, Lewis's Mercedes era, to a large extent Alonso in during his early stint with Ferrari when Ferrari had not gone to shit to a large extent, and years before that you could see where Alonso won. That's why I don't pick a generational driver from them, because I cannot definitively say that Alonso, Vettel, or Hamilton, either of them is better.
Yeah.
Before that, I had Michael. Before that, I had Prost. Prost I had because he was earmarked to be the best driver of the 1980s. So that's roughly why.
I,
Long answer, but yeah.
I can sum up with my thing for this as well. Is just I just think the issue I've had with this is just the significance is the problem, because I think especially right now we've got so many brilliant drivers on the grid. And while I think Max is better, for example, than Oscar and Lando and Charles and George, if Max was significantly better than those drivers, and significant means like a massive margin to those drivers, he'd be winning the championship right now, regardless.
Yeah.
Those drivers are close enough, like, because the cars are close enough that if Max was significantly better, he would have won in Jeddah, he would have won in Australia. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, but those drivers are close enough. Max is a better driver because he's there all the time. That's what makes him so good. But those, like, this is the thing of just, I think people underrate how good the other drivers are, and I think that's what makes Max more impressive, not less. But they want to say like, oh well, Max is 5/10 better. It's like no, but Max pulls it together every single weekend.
Exactly, and that's a big thing.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's what made Senna and Schumacher so good. It's just every fucking weekend they showed up.
Yeah.
Like every weekend they were there. So the stats
they don't
almost
have bad weekends, right? That's the whole thing.
like
don't
that's
have
why
bad
Senna is always in the top 3, because even though Senna only has 3
Not
championships.
in mine.
Yeah, well, in most sane people's lists, he's there. It's like, you know, people are like, oh, well, isn't that just a death tax? Some people will say, or like, you know, but he only has 3 championships, and I'm like, yeah, but it's what he did during those. Like Max only has 4 championships. Max could go the way of Vettel still. You know, we may change our opinion on this later. Like Max might go to another team, and it turns out that just outside of that Red Bull environment, he's just not that good. Yeah. It's unlikely, but it could happen, and we saw it with Vettel, you know?
Yeah.
So we can only base it on what we've seen so far, and with Senna, we can only base it on his time. But why Senna and Max are so similar for me is that they both show up every fucking weekend.